For over a century, the global automotive hierarchy was well established. If you sought luxury, you turned to Germany. For reliability, Japan was the choice. And for muscle, Detroit was the destination. Companies like Toyota, Mercedes, and Ford weren't just manufacturers, they were the industrial cornerstones of the Western world. However, in the last 3 years, this entire foundation has begun to crumble. We are witnessing a significant upheaval in the markets. Mercedes recently experienced a nearly 30% drop in profits. Porsche saw a staggering 90% decline in its bottom line. Volkswagen is even considering closing factories in Germany for the first time in its history. At the center of this turmoil is a name that most people could barely pronounce 5 years ago: BYD. In 2011, when Elon Musk was asked about BYD on live television, he couldn't contain his laughter. Today, however, the sentiment has completely reversed. BYD has officially become the world's largest electric vehicle manufacturer. Yet, as they reach this peak, something alarming is starting to emerge. The success story is showing signs of strain, and the truth behind their rapid rise suggests that their decline could be just as dramatic. This is the real narrative of the massacre, the machine, and the hidden issues underlying the world's most ambitious car company. To appreciate the scale of BYD's impact, it's crucial to examine the global landscape. Many believe this story is solely about a Chinese company succeeding in its home market, but that is a significant misunderstanding. If it were just about China, Western giants like Volkswagen could survive by retreating to their own borders. BYD, however, is not limiting itself to China. They are launching a full-scale global invasion. Take Southeast Asia, for example. For 40 years, Thailand was a stronghold for Japanese automakers, famously known as Toyota Country. In less than 2 years, BYD entered the market and captured 40% of the entire electric vehicle sector. Mitsubishi was forced to shut down its local factory, and Mazda drastically cut its production by more than half. This wasn't mere competition, it was a complete takeover. In Singapore and Malaysia, the situation is similar. 1 in 5 new cars sold is now a BYD. They are not just participating in the market, they are displacing legacy brands that have been around for generations. Even in Europe, the birthplace of the automobile, established brands are losing their foothold. For decades, European manufacturers felt secure, protected by their reputation for superior engineering and prestige. However, prestige doesn't translate to profits when a Chinese competitor offers vehicles with more technology, greater range, and lower price tags. Chinese brands have now captured a double-digit share of the European electric vehicle market, and that figure continues to rise every month. Renault and Stellantis have raised alarms, warning that their profit margins are being squeezed. Even Audi, once synonymous with German excellence, is losing ground both in China and at home. The situation became so critical that the German chancellor had to fly to Beijing with a group of CEOs, not to sign deals, but to implore the Chinese government to ease the pressure. It was a moment charged with geopolitical irony. 20 years ago, the West went to China to teach them how to make cars. Now, they are going to China seeking mercy. How did this turn of events come to pass? How did a company that began as a small battery workshop in 1995 manage to bring the global automotive industry to its knees? The answer lies not just in cheap labor. If low costs were the only factor, every developing nation would have its own global car brand. The key is a man named Wang Chuanfu. He was a chemistry professor and battery engineer who foresaw the future before anyone else. When he founded BYD, he didn't even have a driver's license. He borrowed $40,000 from his cousin to start a shop in Shenzhen, making rechargeable batteries for cell phones. By the early 2000s, he was supplying giants like Motorola and Nokia. However, in 2003, he made a move that caused his investors to sell off their stock in panic. He purchased a failing state-owned car factory. Many considered him insane. Why would a battery specialist attempt to build cars? Wang's logic was both brilliant and straightforward. The most expensive and complex component of an electric car isn't the engine or transmission, it's the battery. While everyone else was retrofitting gasoline cars by adding a battery, Wang chose to design a car specifically around the battery technology he already had. As others laughed at his boxy, poorly constructed early models, he was perfecting a strategy known as vertical integration. Most car companies act as assembly plants, sourcing chips from one supplier, seats from another, and software from yet another. In contrast, BYD decided to produce everything in-house. They manufacture their own semiconductors, motors, LED headlights, and windshields. When the global chip shortage struck in 2021 and crippled other car manufacturers, BYD continued operating seamlessly, ramping up production in its own factories. They aren't just a car company. They are an entire supply chain disguised as a car manufacturer. Then came the Blade battery in 2020. This was a pivotal moment for BYD. While other companies used an expensive mix of nickel and cobalt, BYD developed a lithium iron phosphate battery that was not only cheaper but also longer lasting and, importantly, resistant to catching fire, even if a nail was driven through it. This technology made their cars safer and more affordable than anything Tesla was offering at the time. In fact, the Blade battery was so impressive that Tesla eventually began purchasing batteries from BYD for their own vehicles. Consider that the company Elon Musk once mocked had become a crucial component in his own cars. This bestowed BYD with a significant cost advantage, enabling it to sell high-tech electric vehicles for less than a basic Toyota Corolla. This wasn't merely a better product. It was an economic weapon that the Western world struggled to counter. However, focusing solely on the engineering overlooks a key, controversial aspect of BYD's rise. BYD is not just a successful private company, it is a central pillar of the Chinese state's industrial strategy. Between 2015 and 2020, BYD received over $4 billion in direct subsidies from the government. In some years, the amount they received from Beijing exceeded their entire net profit. In any other country, such a firm would be seen as a state-run utility rather than a profitable enterprise. They received free land, zero-interest loans, and substantial tax breaks. The Chinese government even provided subsidies directly to consumers who purchased BYDs, effectively discounting every car sold. This support enabled BYD to grow at a pace that would be unachievable for a typical company. The state allowed them to operate at a loss for years, significantly boosting their growth. By the time the West realized what was happening, the damage was already substantial. The subsidies had accomplished their goals. BYD had acquired the scale, technology, and global reach to compete effectively. However, as we move through 2026, the so-called BYD miracle is beginning to appear more fragile. Cracks are emerging in the foundation, and they are serious. The first major warning sign came from independent researchers examining BYD's actual debt levels. Officially, they report a manageable amount of debt, but a closer look at their supply chain financing paints a concerning picture. BYD has been paying its suppliers on average 9 months after they deliver parts, while the industry norm is 60 days. By delaying payments further and further, BYD has accumulated a hidden mountain of debt that some analysts estimate is 8 times higher than what appears on their balance sheet. Essentially, they are using their suppliers as an interest-free bank. This behavior mirrors the accounting practices seen with Evergrande before the collapse of the Chinese real estate market. Additionally, a growing scandal concerns what the industry labels as zero-mileage used cars. For years, BYD has boasted record-breaking sales numbers, yet reports are emerging that thousands of these cars are not genuinely reaching real customers. To meet their monthly sales targets and keep stock prices high, dealerships are allegedly registering cars to shell companies and parking them in vast lots to deteriorate. Aerial photos have revealed EV graveyards across China, showcasing thousands of brand-new BYDs sitting idle and slowly rusting. If these allegations are true, it implies that the actual global demand for BYD vehicles may be significantly lower than the company claims. They aren't selling cars. Instead, they are merely shifting inventory from one pocket to another to create the illusion of endless growth. The quality issues at BYD are starting to catch up with them. In their rush to dominate the global market, their engineering has begun to slip. In late 2024 and 2025, BYD had to issue the largest recalls in its history due to significant problems, including steering defects that could cause fires and software glitches that could leave drivers stranded on the highway. On social media, the initial excitement has faded. Owners are now complaining about radios that fail after a month and GPS systems that can't locate their own cities. In Brazil, the company is facing legal action over labor conditions that the government has described as analogous to slavery at its factories. The image of BYD as the innovative underdog is being replaced by that of a corporate giant willing to cut corners to maintain its position. Now, in 2026, the financial reality is setting in. For the first time in years, BYD's net profit has declined significantly. Global sales are falling year on year, and competitors in China, such as Geely and Xiaomi, are outperforming them. The price war BYD initiated to undermine Western brands is now harming their own profit margins. Even the Chinese government has begun to warn automakers that this level of cutthroat competition is unsustainable. When your own supporters tell you to slow down, you know that the good times may be coming to an end. BYD stands at a crossroads. They have the potential to be the next Toyota, but they also have the debt issues and quality problems of a company on the verge of crisis. BYD's rise was a case study in long-term planning and vertical integration, demonstrating that the era of the internal combustion engine is over. However, their story serves as a cautionary tale. You cannot build a global empire on the hidden foundations of debt and state-funded aggression without eventually hitting a wall. The global automotive industry is no longer about who can build the best machine. It's about who can survive the longest amidst shrinking profit margins and trade wars. Whether BYD will navigate the next few years successfully or become just another footnote in the history of industrial bubbles remains to be seen. One thing is certain: the car industry will never be the same again. Looking to the future, the BYD playbook is being applied across other industries, including solar panels, wind turbines, and even commercial aircraft. The strategy remains consistent: dominate the supply chain, leverage state funding to outlast competitors, and expand until you become too big to fail. But as BYD is discovering, the larger you grow, the harder you fall when cracks begin to appear. The world is watching to see if this giant can fix its foundation, or if we are about to witness one of the most significant crashes in automotive history. For now, the old guard has been dismantled. However, the true challenge for the new leader has only just begun. If you've been observing this shift in your own area or have experienced the quality of these cars firsthand, I want to hear from you. Is BYD the future of transportation, or is it a giant bubble waiting to burst? The data might tell one story, but the reality on the ground often tells another. We are experiencing a massive transformation in global mobility, and the rules of the game are being rewritten in real time. To truly understand what's happening in the global economy, you need to look beyond the headlines and examine the machinery at work. Keep your eyes on the road, because the next few years are going to be a wild ride.